All right, welcome to another episode of 28 Days of Blackness. We're honored to have Lewis Spears with us today, and he'll be talking about Medgar Evers. So, let's get right into it. Lewis, man, tell us something about Medgar's early life.
So, Mr. Evers, he was born on July 2nd, 1925, to James and Jesse Evers in Decatur, Mississippi. He was the third of 5 children. His younger years, he spent a lot on the farm, and basically, this is where this is how a lot of African American individuals made it during that time. He was enlisted in the war in 1946, but about 3 years, he was honorably discharged from the service.
Oh wow! So you mean sharecropping? We understand that was a real big vocation for blacks back then because of the lack of opportunities. I mean, he did the war thing. Did that propel him into doing anything, educationally?
Right. So shortly after that, he enlisted in Alcorn University. Well, it's known as Alcorn State University right now, but it was Alcorn College back then. He graduated within 3 years, and shortly after, he organized the people in his hometown, his home state, Mississippi.
Wow, so he goes from, sharecropper, military man, college kid, and then instantly into activism.
Absolutely. And what helped him to, be known by the NAACP was his gas boycott. At this particular gas station, they allowed black people to spend money for gas but wouldn't let them in the convenience store. So he basically organized a boycott for the gas station, and many prominent people with the NAACP basically sought after him because they saw what type of force he was.
So wow, and I love that because you see a lot of things going on right now with the whole Kaepernick thing. We boycotted H&M. Like, we start to understand a little bit about withholding our money. And is this something that he's done? Like, was this the only thing he did, or was there more?
So that's a good question. Actually, it didn't just stop with the pockets, right? He also worked with Thurgood Marshall, where they were instrumental in the Brown versus Board of Education, that whole case, basically. And to reinforce it, in 1954, he applied to law school down in Mississippi, and he was denied. And that began another level of court litigations and things against the actual state because they were basically displaying racism by not allowing them to attend the school.
So, I don't want to interrupt you too much, brother, but, it sounds like he's been doing some real serious work. And we understand, with that kind of work, you got to put in a lot of dedication. What would you say was like his greatest achievement, like the moves that he was making that, pretty much like stand out?
So he was the first field secretary for the NAACP, and for the state of Mississippi. And what that did was that set him apart and made him a target because he was focused on voters registration. He was focused on bus boycotts. He was focused on economic development of the black community. And those 3 things alone, along with other things, but those 3 things alone basically made him a target. And in 1962, he did something awesome. The same law school that he applied to and was rejected from, he helped James Meredith in that movement. And that particular year, James Meredith actually was accepted and was the first black man to be accepted into that law school. And so, as you can see, based on these patterns, he started becoming like a force to be reckoned with.
Wow, so he couldn't, they didn't give him the opportunity to dunk the ball himself, but he gave an alley-oop to another brother, and that's powerful. So they couldn't just let him, just get away with all of this positive change that he was, doing. Like, was there any pushback?
Yeah, absolutely. He received a lot of pushback because he was very instrumental in the bus boycott. He was also very instrumental in voters registration. He was very instrumental in the economic development of black community. With those three things, along with other things that he has done, they would not allow him to, be great ultimately, right? So in 1962, he was instrumental in helping James Meredith get accepted into the same law school that he was rejected from because of racism. And so in 1963, he was murdered on his front porch. Not in front of his wife, but basically his wife came out to the porch to find that he was dead with his children. And for the black community, we suffered a great loss because a lot of people speak about prominent figures like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X if they were alive. But I would like to venture off to say that if Medgar Evers was alive today, if he was not murdered, then a lot of the things that we take for granted as being like, free, educated black people, we wouldn't be able to take it for granted because of the work that he has done.
Wow. And that's very deep, and I think it's very important for our listeners to actually pay attention to that, especially when we start talking about the 60s. That was literally the decade of death. So you have him dying in 63. You have Malcolm dying in 64. You have King dying in 68. And I know you have the Kennedy, and everyone else, anyone else who pretty much fought, for the equal rights and under equal protections for blacks. Man, that's crazy. But what do we learn from this? Like, how does that affect you? What did you take from his legacy?
So the biggest thing for me, right, is if there's something in your community, if there's something that you're connected to, if there's something that you are exposed to that you don't necessarily like, you have the power to change it. We see countless examples of that with our prominent figures, particularly with Medgar Evers. He went from being a farmer and could have settled there, but decided to, go to the army and could have settled there, but decided to go to college and then serve as an organizer and then, pushed himself as a first field secretary for the state of Mississippi. And that just tells me to take agency. So Kismet of Kings was birthed out of the desire to see black and brown young men excel in our city, Jersey City. It was disheartening to see that as an educator, our black and brown boys were at the bottom of the totem pole when we spoke about achievement, yet at the top of the totem pole when we spoke about dysfunction or negative stereotypes. And this is something that didn't sit well with me. And so 2013, Kismet of Kings was birthed. And, every day we're tackling a lot of social ailments that has our young people by the neck, particularly our young men. And so, with Medgar Evers' example, we're able to do a lot of great things in the community because we know that all things are possible when we work as one.
Wow, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, man. Before we leave, we're going to have to ask you for a quote, a saying, or something, man. Send us home with something, brother. If anything you can give or share with us, drop a jewel for us real quick.
All right. So with my organization, my young men, leave them with a quote every time we dismiss a meeting. The quote is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And the reality is that we like to think that we operate in silos, like, I'm this way at home and I'm this way at school, or I'm this way at work and things like that. The reality is that you are who you are. JC said it best. No matter where you go, you are who you are. So the reality, and it's to our benefit to develop the entire man so that we could be great examples no matter where we go.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, repetition is the mother of skill, and consistency is definitely the father. We appreciate everything, brother. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Stay tuned for another episode of 28 Days of Black.